right, this is the Committee on Legislative Affairs. This is Thursday, November 9, 2017. We're at 6 p.m. Councilor Napolitano.
Here.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
And I have Councilor DePiero.
Here.
We have 3 members. We do have a quorum.
Okay, can we stand and salute the flag?
We have
We have 2 regrets. 2 of our members, Council Hanlon and Council Sani, are not able to make it this evening due to other engagements. Would the clerk read the first item on the agenda?
All right, the first piece of business. This is a resolution up by Councilor Hanlon to create an ordinance to create a committee that will deal with any comprehensive business and/or governmental matters that would relate to the operation of the Wynn Resort development.
Council DePiero?
I'll yield to Councilor McLaughlin as he's a co-sponsor.
Council McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seeing that Councilor Hanlon is not present this evening, he did ask me if we could lay this on the calendar for the next meeting, and that we are hoping to be able to work with some other departments to create this this committee. So I'd ask for a favorable action on laying this on the calendar for 1 month until Councilor Hanlon is back in the chambers.
Are you asking for favorable action or to carry it over?
I'm sorry,
Carry
carry it over, yes.
Second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Yeah. One thing I would like to remind you is that ordinances do need 2 readings. To construct an ordinance, we're going to need to meet, get all the language correct, get it before the body. We're going to be cutting it very, very close, okay? So you might want to consider, talking, after you talk to Councilman Hanlon, maybe pulling it back and reintroducing it in the first of the year, when we have some time to be able to work on this properly. I've got questions myself. I'm trying to imagine what circumstances the city council would have any bearing on issues with Wynn, because we don't deal with the licensing, the permitting, we don't deal with any of that. So, I would like to get a better idea, but then we got to formulate, once we get everybody on the same page, we got to formulate the ordinance, and that's going to take time.
Mr. Chairman, I agree wholeheartedly with you, and now that you bring up the timeline, I'm wondering if we should just send this back so that we can work on it and reintroduce it in January, because I think there's only maybe 2 more meetings before the end of the calendar year, and then we begin a new year. So even at that point, I don't think there's enough time to be able to get this forwarded.
Not to meet it, create it, and then get it
Correct.
approved.
So I don't know
But if you'd like to hold it over and have a conversation with Councilman Hanlon first, you can always motion Monday night to refer it back to sponsor regardless.
So I think we should,
That's right.
I think we should take this out of committee then and send it into the council, and then we can make that motion and refer it back to sponsor at that point from the council floor.
All right. Only, because Monday's agenda is already formed. All right. Actually, looking at the timetable, that's correct. Monday's agenda is already formulated. But it's up to you. Right now, you have a motion to hold it over till our next committee meeting. If you want to change your motion, it's entirely up to you at this point.
I'll just ask this informal question, but do we know if it got put, I know sometimes an item gets put onto the council calendar previous to,
It's not.
it's not, okay, I didn't get to see the agenda yet, so, okay. Then I will just make a motion to leave it into committee, and then we can just, we can refer it back to sponsor at the next meeting in December in committee at that point, because it's not enough time to work on it.
All right, so we have a motion to refer it back to sponsor and second it. All in favor? We're going to refer it back to sponsor. Okay. Clerk, read the second item on the agenda.
Item number 2. This is a work study report in an order up by Councilor Michael McLaughlin and Councilor John Hanlon to create a legislative code for the city council offices.
Thank you. I have been made aware that one of our colleagues has some amendments that have been written. Rather than send this to the floor and have it all discussed there. The proper thing would, for that, those amendments to have come back to this committee so we could work on them. So I would entertain a motion to grant further time and refer this back to a work group. Please.
If I can ask one question, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Well, actually, two questions. One is, has the city clerk or assistant city clerk received the amendments? I'm just learning of from our
No, they-
colleague.
We-
There's
we
nothing
don't
on
know
the
what
table.
those
Okay.
amendments are.
My other question is, because of timeline that we've just been recently talking about, I think it is prudent to send it to the floor, only because if we refer to the next committee meeting,
No,
where does it go from there?
well, this is different than an ordinance. An ordinance needs 2 readings. This is putting in a code, this is an order, and that only needs 1 reading. So we have enough time to make the amendments and still get it before the floor. The thing is that we have a light agenda on our next meeting, but getting these amendments in while half the body is not even aware of what it is we're looking to accomplish, this could end up being an hour and a half easy.
Sure, no, I have no problem with that. As long as we're going to have enough time to go through committee and put it back out onto the floor for a one vote, I have no problem with that. My only thing is I'd like to invite Councilor Capone, which I believe is the individual that has the amendments. I'd like to invite him to the next committee meeting so that he can present his amendments to us, and we can work on.
That's why my
Incorporate it.
recommendation was that we hold it over and
Yep.
and send it back to a work group for that purpose. Then we can hammer out the details, the changes, get the discussion all done, be able to get a finished product out to the floor when we,
Before the end of the year. Yep.
before the year, so we can pass this.
I'll second your motion on laying it on.
I didn't make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Council. I thought you made the motion.
It's
Sorry.
okay. That's why I called it a recommendation.
So moved.
So moved, if you,
Say so moved.
So,
So moved.
yes, right. Refer it to the next work.
So moved. Just say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
thank you. So we have a motion to hold this over and refer it to a legislative affairs work group to be able to hammer out this and invite Council Capone to attend that work group session. Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Clerk, read the last item.
All
on the
right,
agenda.
item number 3, this ordinance offered by Council Anthony DePiero, that section 12A-61 of the revised ordinance of the city of Everett be hereby deleted in its entirety and replaced by inserting a newly revised ordinance.
Councilman DePiero?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My intent with this ordinance, as you can see with the preamble, I'll just read it very briefly. The intent of this ordinance is to maintain an attractive residential business climate, as well as enhance and protect the physical appearance of the community. And whereas political signs perform an important and necessary function in the community for candidates and causes, such as election participation and issue awareness, and whereas, because of their potential detrimental impact on the visual and perceptual environment, political signs must be regulated. And I know when this was first introduced, Councilor Capone had some concerns about the constitutionality of it. Most of this was taking bits and pieces from other city ordinances, some much more stricter in other cities and towns. I kind of leaned back of that. I think regulations are needed. We're not restricting it in its entirety. We're not censoring political signs. I just think they need to be regulated. As you can see by the photo here, it can be out of control at some places. And as we know, people take advantage. They don't ask permission. They just throw them wherever they want. And I think it needs to be regulated.
And I do thank you for taking the picture before I put my sign up
Yes.
there in the mix, which I did have permission. for
I
the
know you
record.
did. You were one of
Thank
about
you.
2 or 3 that actually had permission, so.
I was looking to try to get an idea of this, but, no, I think this is a good piece, I do. But again, it's not my place to comment.
And I do have 2 quick amendments, if I may make them. The first is the first definition. Second line, I'd like to remove the phrase "or candidates" and replace with certified / write-in candidates. And the second amendment is on the next page, under limitations, part 6, where it says property owner. I'd like to add and/or tenant with landlord's permission.
sorry, which item was on the limitations?
6,
Oh, thank you.
just adding on to the sentence, not eliminating anything. I know we run into cases sometimes where we might have a landlord or property owner that lives out of state, and oftentimes a tenant is pretty much allowed to rule the property, and in this case, they would have permission by the landowner to do such.
How would that prevent someone from making the case that a tenant has given them permission and not necessarily contact the property owner?
You know, I'm not looking for fines to be issued based on hearsay, then, you know, I would expect evidence, so, you know, not to be unfair.
Councilman DePiero? If I could make a recommendation, just a suggestion, because you've got, you know, the difference between this and item number 1 is you have a hard copy that we're working off of. Seeing as the work group is going to need to meet regardless, and that's what we were just discussing, that we could meet on, we're looking at meeting Monday the 20th, because of the way next week is already allocated. There's not a lot of space for us to squeeze it in. There's too much going on.
Yep.
But if there's no meeting on the 20th, is it 20th? The clerk's going to check his agenda right now. Because just iron out a few minor details to this, because I got a few ideas I want
Yep,
to run by you
as long
well.
as it fits the timeline, Mr. Chairman, before the end of the legislative
You've got
session,
structure here,
that's fine
which
with
is,
me.
again, Councilman McLaughlin, I hope you understand, that's the difference between this and item 1. You have some structure here. This may not take that long to run it through the group, you know, because it's not that long. It's fairly comprehensive, and, you know, I just think I'd feel better, personally, I'd feel better going before the floor if we had a chance to look through it. If it was by itself, I'd say let's amend it now
Yep.
and send it off. But where we have to meet anyway, I think we could, as a group, have a more casual conversation to address the concerns here.
With that said, Mr. Chairman, as long as it fits the timeline, I'll rescind my motion for amendments and move to refer it to the work session.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just want to bring those amendments into our work session, but I think you're right, Councilman Napolitano, by saying that we'll have one chance to glance over it and work through any of the kinks, because I do also have an amendment or two on there that I'd like to make as well, but we don't need to do them tonight if we all have one more chance to take a look at it, and as long as it fits timeline.
Yeah, this will give our 2 other members an opportunity to be here for
Yep.
that discussion. And at least then we'll know, going into the floor, half the council will have an understanding of this, or just a little under half.
That's fine with me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Ms. Clerk, did you have something you wanted to add? Yeah. Please.
Invite up the city clerk.
Second.
Sorry. So yes, City Clerk Sergio Canelio. So yes, the 20th works fine with my schedule. And it works well because as long as it comes out of the work session, you could probably, I don't know if it's okay with the clerk, if we could put it back to a legislative body like this, maybe that same week, that Thursday. That way we could refer it. Okay, so not Thanksgiving. Yeah, all right. All right, so then, or even prior to that meeting on the 27th, that way it could go back on the agenda for the 27th. That way, because though this legislative code doesn't need 2 readings, it can't be voted in the first night. It doesn't need to be voted twice, but by rule, this is similar to a rule change. You have to read it, and they have to refer it to another meeting. So it still has to be referred, and we still have enough time, either way. So, but you would still have enough time, whether it was read on the 27th or the first meeting in December, you could still send it to the second December meeting. We are fine. I just want to,
Could you research this?
Yes.
Because where this would not be normal course of business because we're at the end of a session.
Yep.
With a limited number of meetings.
Mhm.
If that can be an exception.
okay,
in this
yeah, I
case.
can check with OML.
Okay. And that way
open
there,
meeting
if
law.
that is the case, we're already past that. If it isn't the case, then we still have just enough time, I believe.
Are you considering this
It's not exactly a rule, but it's its own code, so I still don't know that I don't know that we should vote on it in the same evening. But either way, if it came out, and I'll double check that with you, we can discuss that further. Correct. So, yeah, so this is similar to our sorry to talk back and forth with the clerks.
That's fine.
The only reason so we have to find out exactly what we did with the mayor's administrative code, and that's probably the best way to do it, because it's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So we would base it on the same idea, so,
Well,
can I just talk to you about that after, and we'll
Right.
work it out? Is that
There's-
okay?
There's plenty of time for the legislative code. I'm not concerned with
Okay.
that, because we've got enough time to get the revisions in and still get it in under the wire. The signs is an ordinance.
Right, but you
And
could,
if we're
there's 2
gonna-
meetings in December, and we're
Right.
only in the middle of November, so
Right.
even if it came out for the first meeting in December, was read, voted on, you still could vote on the second meeting in December and be fine, and the mayor can still sign it. So,
Right. So
I think we're okay either way, as long as it's voted by that first meeting in December.
Right, and I'll
Is
make
that
a
okay?
point- I'll make a point that
But
when
I'll
we're in
double
the
check.
work group session, that we accommodate how we're going to get this information out to everybody, with the understanding that we've got a small
Limited
window
time.
here.
Yep.
Okay.
And I can do that if you need me to, send out an email.
Sure. Councilman McLaughlin?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So City Clerk Cornelio just said that Monday on the 20th, and then you would have it for that Thursday night meeting. Obviously, that's Thanksgiving. Can we still do it that week, whether it's Tuesday or what? I'm concerned
I
that,
think we're talking about it referring it the first week of December to the first meeting in December, right?
Yeah, what he was saying to get it on the agenda for the last meeting in November instead.
Right.
Could we, which you can pre-schedule a committee meeting. It's
Correct.
just the clerk's timing.
Right, we could do it right before the regular meeting.
That's what I was asking, that Monday.
that's,
If everybody's
In agreement.
in agreement, that the work study group, this is what's gonna work,
Right.
then we can refer it out. And we can make sure that it's.
On the agenda, ready. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's why I wanna check with the membership.
We can make that decision Monday, on the 20th, of whether or not we're in agreement, in which case then we can accelerate it for the
And we have
first
plenty of
the
time for
last
that
meeting in
Wednesday.
November, and that gives us an extra session, an extra meeting.
Yeah. Is that okay?
That works for me.
so if everybody's not in,
Remember, City Hall is basically shut down. We need to get that.
Yeah, but you get it by Wednesday. I'll be here all day on Wednesday, so that's fine. You can give it to me. I'll handle that if we need be.
so if
Okay.
on the 20th, everybody is not in agreement, where do we go from there at that point? Do we
Well,
still have
obviously,
time?
we'll
at
Still have
that
some
point?
time.
We'll have to have a meeting of the group.
Okay. All right, but hopefully we'll all come to the table on that night, even if we have to stay a little longer.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
really get it.
I would imagine that, Council Capone's recommendations are, he's always gave us good, solid reasoning
Yep.
behind it. But again, without knowing what that is, we can't make that amendment now. And turning that loose on a regular meeting,
But-
I would most definitely not want to do that.
And,
I don't think either of
and
you would
he,
do.
sorry to interrupt, he did say he will have them for me prior. He just didn't have enough time for it tonight, but hopefully next week he'll have it, and I'll email it to all the colleagues, all the city councilors, so you can at least have some time to review it prior, so you know what's coming that evening when he comes.
And I'll give him a call tonight. I'll let him know what the reasoning was behind what we're doing, so we have
Yep.
a direct connection.
Okay,
Is
great.
that okay?
All right, yeah, no, I'm fine. Thank you for the clarification.
With all that said, again, I'll rescind my motions for amendments, and so moved.
Motion, what you want to do is you want a motion to send it to the work group
Yes.
meeting as well.
Make a motion that we refer this to the next work group session on Monday, November 20th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.